Hey guys, Chris at the Ultimate Recycler. This is the back gate to my property down the back lane, and I'm now about to embark on part 8 of my great yard cleanup. And it's been about 3 months since I last did an episode here, and we've had a pretty cold wet winter and I haven't been out in the backyard a great deal, but I've just been reorganising in the sun today the back section, and it's still a little disorganized, but this video will hopefully progress to having this area much more organized, and hopefully I can get the lane cleaned up enough to back my trailer down here. Now it looks terrible at the moment because the grass is overgrown. As I said, I haven't been out here much for the last few months. It's been quite wet. The other thing is that I actually did have a leaking mains water pipe under here. I've only just got that fixed and levelled off in the last few days, and because I've been walking around here quite a bit today, you can't even really see where it's been dug up, but there was a pipe there about 18 inches down that came from the water meter over here, and it was obviously been weeping for quite a long time, and it was getting worse and worse, and it was becoming a bit of a swamp. So I'm pleased to have that fixed, and now that we're a bit more organised and don't have muddy shoes, we can get back into processing all this stuff and getting it neat and organised. Now, I thought I'd have a chat to you about a few things I'm doing. Those of you that follow my channel a little bit know that I pack a lot of steel in old dryer bodies, and I've got them all lined up along the fence. There's a bit of junk in front of them, but they're all lined up there behind the tin and that pallet, and they're all up on timber, and there's tin underneath the timber there, so should stop the weeds growing up through there. And that's all nice clean steel, and the price of steel has been going quite good lately, and I'm planning on doing a few loads down there, and it's actually been paying over 20 cents a kilo, which is pretty good for clean steel, and these all are going to add up to quite a lot of weight, and they'll pack neatly on my trailer. But I've been making a few decisions in that, because I have to drive about an hour and a half down the freeway to get to a decent paying scrapyard, I want to make the loads as viable as I can. So I've decided to cull a bit of stuff that I was saving. And you'll see this old stove over here, and just some light, very light metal that doesn't stack very well. The old racks out of dishwashers. And stuff with contamination, dirty steel that's got glass in the old oven. And rather than get, around about 10 cents a kilo for dirty steel and have a whole trailer load, which really isn't going to pay that well for a big trip, I've decided I'll put all this aside, and this can all go out to the local transfer station where it's free to drop off. I don't need to get a return on everything, and it'll just make my yard a lot neater, and it'll make my trips to Melbourne more efficient. So that's where I'm up to. I've made that decision, and I do have to find out, and I'm going to ring the scrapyard on Monday, those old oil column heaters, whether they'll go as clean steel or whether they'll go as dirty, because they actually still have oil in them. And if they don't pay much for them, even though they weigh fairly well, if it's only a 10 cents a kilo type weight, then I'll kick those over to the other side of the lane here, and they can go to the local transfer station. All the computer bodies there are all packed full of small steel, and they all weigh quite a bit. The old toolbox was no good. It was rusted out on the bottom. The paint cans are full of nails and rusty nuts and bolts and things that I can't sell or I don't want to keep. And it's all nice clean steel. So next stage, I've been pulling out some weeds on this pile. This pile was stacked here probably about 10 years ago, and it's a bit of everything. It's tangly stuff, it's not necessarily clean steel, and there may even be a few things in there that when I was stacking it there all that time ago I didn't think was ever any value, but now I'm more into recycling and upcycling things that I might actually pull a few things out of there that I'll end up keeping or reusing. I've got an old large air conditioner here to scrap out. It hasn't got gas in it, otherwise I wouldn't have taken it. But that should have some good copper aluminium radiators in it. There's a big electric motor in there as well. The There's an old trolley here upside down that I picked up at a garage sale a long time ago. The wheels are seized up, but it's actually going to be handy if I can get that fixed up. And this is left over from the last mattress I pulled apart, and the worms will eat that, so I'll feed that to my worm farm. So there we go. I'll update this video as we go. Hopefully we've got a few nice sunny days coming up, and hopefully I'll get a little bit further down this laneway. And yeah, we might even find some treasures, because I think there's some good gear packed underneath all this junk that I picked up at a clearance sale one time. And I might as well get it up into the shop, or at least chain it out the front of the shop, and I might make a few sales. Alright, I'll better hop to it. Next sunny day won't be tomorrow because I'm busy, probably Monday. I'll get out here and get a bit further, and I'll film it as I go. Quick update now. I've managed to get a bit sorted out. Had a couple of nice sunny afternoons out here, and I've got all this side fence area stacked neatly, ready to go to Melbourne whenever I decide to do a load. One of my subscribers did ask me about all the small stuff. Well, as you can see, I use the computer cases for lots of bits and pieces. An old toolbox, anything that's nice clean steel. You obviously have to take the front plastic covers off the computer cases. Old paint cans, I always have one or two in my shed, empty, or at least with the lid off, and I just throw bent nails and screws and anything small in those, and they do weigh up to, you know, quite a bit of weight. And you know, as long as you keep the lid, they're waterproof, they won't fill up with water, and they can go down to the scrapyard very easily. Bit of good weight for stuff that people normally just throw away. So lots of dryer bodies. There's a microwave shell there that I've kind of bent one end in, so it's less sort of, it takes up less space. So I always have a few containers on the go around the place, and I just keep packing it with stuff. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it ends up with, you know, a nice paying load really. I mean, these dryer bodies, I weighed one or two of them, and I get close to 100 kilos in them, mainly just with flat things. And most of your CD players, and you know, anyone that scraps e-waste, all the tin cases, they fold up really flat and they just stack in there well. I've got some fluoro light housings here which are fairly light for the space they take up, but I'll squeeze a few of those in when I go. A little bit of rubbish I've been turning up, a few things that I've either got to just cut up a bit with the angle grinder, or if they're too much hassle and not much weight, they'll go over to this pile, which I haven't been able to get rid of yet, but I'll probably do a load in a couple of days and take that out the transfer station. That'll make this part of the yard look a lot neater. So yeah, coming along. As you can see, I'm extending this storage section down the fence. I've put a few more half pallets there with some tin underneath, and I'm continuing to work my way through this pile. There's actually not a lot more tangly metal to get through, and we'll start getting into some more interesting stuff. Next job today is I'll just scrap down this old air conditioner. As I said in the first part of this video, there's no gas in it. It came from a place where a guy used to do a bit of refrigeration work, and I wouldn't have taken it if it still had the gas in it, because that presents a real problem. You can't just let it out into the atmosphere, and it actually costs you, plus the inconvenience to have it degassed. And if I took it to the transfer station, I think they even charge me. Same with fridges and freezers. I avoid them if I possibly can. Anyway, that's the plan today. And next dryer body I get, we've got a lot of stuff just to be stacked in it. So it's all going pretty well. I'll check in with you when I get a bit further down the lane. Oh, I forgot to mention, these oil column heaters, I rang the scrapyard about them, and he said they don't take them because of the oil in them. I guess there's possibly an explosion risk if they go in the furnace, or perhaps it's just because they're very messy when they get sheared up or shredded, or whatever happens in the large steel recycling process. So I've got quite a few of those, so even though they weigh a bit, I'm actually just going to take them out to the transfer station here. There's absolutely no point in wasting time trying to drain the oil out of them, because then I have to obviously dispose of the oil, and the time involved isn't worth it just for steel. Just checking in again, guys. I've loaded up the ute and the trailer with all this messy, light, dirty pressing steel Hopefully get out to the transfer station tomorrow. I haven't had many chances to get out to this back lane lately. The last week we've had a lot of showery weather. It's not too bad today, but it's been quite wet underfoot. But I have been getting somewhere, as you can see. Getting a little bit more organised along this side. I've turned that trolley up the other way. 3 of the 4 wheels are frozen solid, but I think that'll be a handy trolley if I put a little floor on it and free the wheels up. Got rid of quite a bit of the pressing steel, packed away, and what you just saw in the trailer came from there. So I'll leave that space empty as I'm processing to stack up stuff that has to go out to the transfer station, and that should keep me organised if I can move it to there, and then when I've got a load I'll take it out there. So I'll do a load tomorrow, as I said, and that'll tidy all that up. I'm continuing down this side. We've worked into this big pile of tangly steel. I've got a lot of weeds pulled out today. I have got one of these air conditioners scrapped out, and I did a separate video on that, and I'll put the link up the top right hand corner now, because that actually was quite a good scrap and quite surprising the value in these things. So I'll do this one, and there's a third one there when I get a moment, and then we'll continue along this fence. So we are getting somewhere, even though it looks frightfully messy further down. I should be able to move through that a bit quicker because there's not quite the density of junk, and there is some cool stuff in there that I remember. So we've probably nearly got halfway down the lane, and all this stuff in the middle won't take long to pack away when I get another dryer body free. So yeah, I actually feel like I'm making progress, so that's nice. We just need a few more nice days. It's sort of late winter here in Australia. We've had some pretty cold, showery weather, but then every now and again we get a beautiful, nice afternoon that almost feels like spring. Today hasn't been too bad, but there's been a few showers around, and they're forecasting showers and storms every day for the next week. So I mightn't get out here for a while, but I'm sure I'll see you shortly anyway. Well, another week's gone by, and yes, it was cold and showery. In fact, we had hail some days, maximum of I think 10. We might have got to 11 yesterday. That's Celsius, so that's pretty chilly. But look, I've got out here for a little while today. I've managed to get rid of those old air conditioners, and I've got further into this pile of steel. In fact, there's not a lot of scrappy, messy steel left. And what we're looking at here, I can remember buying this at a clearing sale. It's actually a very old shearing plant engine. It's got the overhead sort of gear here that would have, this would have been a leather belt drive, and you'd hook your shearer's handpiece into the shaft. I think the shaft's actually still there under the grass. The engine has lost its, the cylinder's gone, the head's gone, that's the piston sticking out the top. I think it's rusted solid. That's how I bought it. I really only bought it for a garden ornament, and it got dumped off my trailer and consequently buried out here, but I'm just about ready to be able to get my trailer in and take it out and bring it around the front of the shop and set it up as a bit of a display. Now, under this old tabletop is an old slasher, and it's a chain drive self-propelled slasher, and it's got a nice old engine on it, complete with a magneto. And I only bought this because of the nice old engine, and apparently it was in working order. I've kept the rain off it, but I didn't want the actual slasher part, so I'll dig that out too. And the wheels on the slasher are quite nice. They're old metal wheels, so we'll drag that out next nice sunny day we get. I'm just finishing up today, but you can see that I have made a bit of progress again. I dragged that big heap of plastic, black builder's plastic, out from underneath. It was all folded up underneath the pile of steel. That came out of someone's shed, but it's going to be handy to use as weed matting. So yeah, I think we've just gone past the halfway part of the lane, although obviously there's still stuff to clear up back here. The pile to go to the transfer station has built up again, and I'll try and do another load this week. So yeah, you're not seeing much in this video other than, you know, little bits of progress of a guy cleaning up his back lane, but we will dig out that old engine and give you a bit of look at that. That's rather interesting. And then we've got some more stuff. Quite a few stainless steel sinks around. I think there's another couple over there. So we'll dig those out, we'll get them into the shop because they're too good to sell for scrap. And I have a feeling under that big pile there was some stuff I bought over 10 years ago and then put a tarp over it and never got back to it. And honestly, I have no idea what's in there. So that'll be a bit of fun. We'll try and get into that next chance we get. So it's been an excellent day out today. I've done a couple more hours out here. I've dragged out this old slasher. What a beast, hey? Look at the blade, it sticks right out the front, which is really good. It's a bit tight. It's really good for hacking into really high weeds and large marshmallows and wild mustard and that sort of stuff, because you don't have to get the mower over the top of it. It just chops the stems off. I do believe I used one of these when in my younger days, or something similar, and I think I might have hit a water pipe and just chopped it straight off at the ground, and instantly I felt like I was pushing a car through a car wash. Anyway, the engine's a beauty. It's a BSA, which I think was British Small Arms was the original company. They made firearms and other things, and during the war I think after the war they went into engines. They made motorbikes, of course, well known for motorbikes. Not too sure what the origins are, you can look that one up. It's a nice old engine, it's got a magneto. It's missing the cover, and I vaguely remember the farmer at the clearing sale after I bought it mentioned it to me that there was some bits in the shed he had for it, and I have a feeling they're in my shed, so it might be more of a challenge to find them than what it might be to get this engine even going. Now, a question for all you guys. What should I do with this? Should I do a separate restoration video on this engine? It would be quite a long, detailed video, but mechanics was my trade. I used to do a lot with small engines, so it might make an interesting restoration. Should I take the engine off and just restore the engine? Or should I restore the whole slasher? Now, I don't really have a use for the whole slasher. I would probably just sell it, in which case hours and hours in restoration work really wouldn't give a lot of return. Admittedly, I'd probably just resell the engine down the track anyway, but if I just do the engine, it's easier to manage in my workshop. The wheels off the slasher I could use for another project, or I could just sell the slasher as it is without an engine. So let me know in the comments what you think I should do there. At this stage I'll just push it aside. I'll keep the thing under cover so that water doesn't get into it. See, we've got a bit of wildlife living in there now, but other than the points in the Maggie just going a little bit surface rusty, probably from just the damp air, I think the water's been kept out of it quite nicely. It does spin over, so it should be a reasonably easy fix up, but then it depends how far I want to go with the restoration. Maybe paint it all up. I don't really like painting engines. I think they look a bit unnatural, an old engine with fresh paint. But then again, someone's put silver over this anyway, so yeah, well, let me know what you think I should do with that one. We'll be able to just push it around now anyway and keep it out of the road. And the other old piece of equipment was this shearing plant engine. It's really just the crankcase. It's a marked Cooper on the base, which were well known early engines and shearing gear as well. But the plate on it also says Ronaldson Brothers and Tippett, Ballarat, Victoria. Ronalds and Tippett were well known for engines. I assume they made them, or whether they just marketed the engine and it was made by Cooper. I'm not totally sure on that. But it does, I thought this was seized, but it does actually spin over the crank. The crank is good, even the big end on the conrod pivots, and even the gudgeon pin in the piston pivots. So keeping the water out of it was a good thing. I had the sense way back then to leave the oil drain bung off, so any water that did get in there drained out. And it doesn't look too bad in there as far as rust goes. It looks like it's had a good liberal coating of thick old oil, which has probably protected it. It's a bit beyond restoring because there's too much missing. We've got no cylinder, no head, no carby. The magneto's gone, which would have sat on that plate there. Or underneath actually, because you can see where it drives there. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be a restoration project, because I'd struggle to find parts and it'd end up being a wild goose chase. But likewise, I don't think I should necessarily leave it out in the garden to all seize up, because the crankcase perhaps could have another use. Maybe I could repurpose it for something, or sell it for parts for someone else that's doing up one of these. Whatever I do with that engine, it doesn't really matter. I could take it off the frame, and the frame is still probably saleable as a garden ornament. This end used to drive with a flat belt. That still spins amazingly. So that drove off a flat belt from the flywheel on this side, or the inside of the flywheel. And this side would have had a big flat section like here for sharpening, a big flat sanding disc for sharpening your combs and cutters. So it's a really cool piece. I just got to work out what I'm going to do with it. It's certainly not scrap metal. So we'll address this in another video too, whatever I do, and I'm sure I'll get a video out of it. The important thing is that I've got them now accessible. I've made a bit of space in my yard, and you can see now we're actually well over halfway down the lane, and I'm going to do another load to the transfer station tomorrow, and really I've just got to pack away a few more bits of light steel, and it's getting much more organised. So I'll finish this video up now. I haven't actually done anything to show you as far as tips or tricks or building something or upcycling or anything. We've just done a lot of talking, but hope you've enjoyed that. Next part of this clean-up yard series, I'll continue down here, see if I can get down to the van. We'll find some treasures under there, as I suggested. There's got to be something good under there. Have to deal with some of these huge washing machines, because there is actually quite a lineup of them on this side, and we'll probably do a scrap out video on one of those as well. There's some stuff up the top there which I've got to process and put in the shop, and there's some really long roofing, clip lock roofing, which I might try and use, because my shipping container way down there underneath that tree has been there quite a long time. It's got a lot of leaves on the top of it, and I actually think it may be starting to rust through, so I might have to put a second roof over that. Anyway, we'll leave this video for now. Thanks for watching. Hope you're enjoying this series. Give me some feedback, and don't forget to let me know what you think I should do with this engine here, the old BSA. Catch you next time.